Welcome to the Daily Globe. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. On October 11, 2025, the United States Supreme Court struck down the sweeping trade tariffs imposed by former President Donald Trump. The decision, delivered in a packed courtroom and broadcast around the world, sent shockwaves through financial markets and political circles alike. For years, these tariffs had been a defining feature of American economic policy, shaping the way the U.S. interacted with its trading partners and influencing global commerce. This landmark decision instantly reshaped the global economic landscape, signaling a dramatic shift away from years of protectionism. Stock markets reacted with volatility as investors scrambled to assess the new rules of engagement. International businesses, long hampered by uncertainty and rising costs, began to anticipate a new era of opportunity and growth. The world had watched as America's tariffs strained alliances and forced countries to redraw trade maps. Negotiations had grown tense, with many nations retaliating with their own tariffs, leading to a cycle of escalating trade wars. The Supreme Court's ruling was seen as a signal that the United States was ready to re-engage with the world on new terms. Now, with a single ruling, those barriers are gone, and the stage is set for renewed global collaboration. Borders that once felt closed are opening, and businesses are eager to rebuild relationships and supply chains that had been disrupted for years. The decision reaffirms Congress's authority over trade, limiting presidential power and restoring a crucial balance in U.S. governance. Lawmakers now face the challenge of crafting new trade policies that reflect both American interests and the realities of a rapidly changing world. For businesses and consumers worldwide, the path forward is clearer, but new questions and challenges remain. Companies must adapt to shifting regulations, and consumers wonder how quickly prices will change on the goods they rely on every day. The process of unwinding years of tariffs will be complex, affecting everything from supply chains to the price of everyday goods. Some industries will benefit immediately, while others may face new hurdles as the global market adjusts to this historic change. The day the walls came down marks the beginning of a new chapter in global trade, one filled with both opportunity and uncertainty. As the world watches, the choices made in the coming months will shape the future of international commerce for years to come. To truly understand the Supreme Court's recent decision, we need to look back at the dramatic changes that Trump's tariffs brought to U.S. trade and the global economy. The story begins with a bold and controversial move that would ripple across industries and borders. After his 2024 re-election, President Trump doubled down on his America First agenda. He escalated tariffs, arguing that higher import taxes would protect American manufacturing jobs and revive struggling industries. The administration's message was clear: foreign competition would no longer have the upper hand. In April 2025, the administration imposed a sweeping 10% tariff on nearly all imported goods, from electronics to clothing to raw materials. This move sent average tariff rates soaring to 18%, the highest in decades, and sent shockwaves through global supply chains. By August, the situation had escalated further. Some countries, especially those with large trade surpluses with the U.S., faced tariffs as high as 50%. Businesses around the world were thrown into chaos, scrambling to adjust to the new reality and facing mounting uncertainty about the future of global trade. The tariffs became a blunt negotiating tool, forcing countries to the bargaining table and redrawing the map of international trade relationships. Long-standing agreements were suddenly up for renegotiation, and global leaders found themselves in tense, high-stakes talks. Even America's closest allies, Canada, Mexico, and the UK, were not spared. They too were caught in the crossfire, facing new barriers and uncertainty in their economic ties. With the U.S. retaliatory tariffs soon followed, hitting U.S. exporters hard. American farmers, already struggling with low prices, saw their overseas markets shrink. Targeted levies on products like pharmaceuticals and trucks upended entire industries, forcing companies to rethink their strategies and, in some cases, lay off workers. The result was a fundamental reshaping of America's economic ties with the world, executed with unprecedented unilateral force. Old alliances were tested, and new trade blocs began to emerge as countries sought to protect their own interests. Around the globe, governments and businesses scrambled to adapt. New partnerships were forged, supply chains shifted, and companies raced to find alternative markets and suppliers to survive the turmoil. The legacy of these tariffs was one of global disruption. Stock markets tumbled, trade routes were redrawn, and economic uncertainty became the new normal. This upheaval set the stage for a fierce legal battle over the limits of presidential power. Now, with the Supreme Court's landmark ruling, that turbulent era has come to an abrupt and dramatic end, leaving the world to grapple with what comes next. On October 11, 2025, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that the Trump-era tariffs were unconstitutional. Chief Justice Roberts, writing for the majority, emphasized that only Congress has the authority to regulate foreign commerce. The court's decision wasn't about economic policy, but about restoring the separation of powers. The ruling followed months of legal challenges from businesses and industry groups who argued the president had overreached. The majority agreed, stating that national security provisions couldn't justify such sweeping economic measures. The decision immediately nullified the tariffs, sending a clear message: trade policy belongs to Congress, not the executive. Dissenting justices argued for broader presidential power, but the majority's view prevailed. This verdict restores a constitutional balance many felt had been eroded. The legal precedent will shape how future presidents approach trade. The Supreme Court's decision triggered immediate and polarized reactions. President Biden welcomed the ruling, calling it a victory for the rule of law and a chance to rebuild alliances. For his administration, it's a clean slate to pursue a more collaborative trade policy. Former President Trump condemned the decision, claiming it undermined American jobs and sovereignty. His supporters see it as the judiciary thwarting the will of the people, ensuring trade remains a hot political issue. On Capitol Hill, Democrats and some Republicans praised the court for restoring congressional authority. Others, aligned with Trump, lamented the loss of a tool to confront economic rivals. The ruling has reignited debate over protectionism versus free trade, exposing deep divisions within both parties. The political fallout is far from over. Trade policy is back at the center of American politics. Global markets rallied as news of the ruling broke, sending a wave of optimism through trading floors from New York to Tokyo. Investors, who had been bracing for prolonged uncertainty, suddenly found themselves in a much more favorable environment. With the prospect of stability returning, investors welcomed the change, and financial markets responded with surges in both volume and value. The International Monetary Fund is now expected to revise its global growth forecasts upward, reflecting renewed confidence in the world economy. This marks a sharp reversal from the gloom and uncertainty that trade wars had cast over the global outlook, with many experts now predicting a stronger recovery. For the United States, the end of tariffs means a loss of government revenue, but it also signals a major shift in economic policy. More importantly, it brings relief from inflationary pressures that have been squeezing both businesses and consumers for months. Major retailers like Walmart and Target can now avoid passing on higher costs to shoppers, helping families stretch their budgets further and boosting consumer confidence. However, for domestic manufacturers, the return of cheaper imports means renewed competition, forcing them to innovate and adapt to stay competitive. This increased competition threatens jobs in sectors that had previously been protected, raising concerns among workers and unions about the future of local industries. Globally, countries like those in the European Union and Canada are anticipating a faster economic recovery as they regain access to the lucrative U.S. market. As barriers to the U.S. market fall, international trade is expected to accelerate, benefiting exporters and logistics companies worldwide. The ruling dismantles obstacles that had forced nations to seek new trade partners, paving the way for renewed cooperation and economic growth. With access to the world's largest consumer market reopened, businesses and consumers alike are poised to benefit from greater choice and lower prices. The effects of these changes will ripple through global supply chains, impacting everything from raw materials to finished products on store shelves. Prices, job markets, and business strategies will all be affected for months, if not years, as companies adjust to the new landscape. The transition won't be easy, and some sectors will face significant challenges as they adapt to increased competition and shifting demand. Still, the promise of renewed global trade and economic integration is clear, offering hope for a more prosperous future. As the world braces for this new era, businesses, governments, and consumers alike are preparing for the opportunities and challenges that lie ahead. The Supreme Court's decision will be felt in everyday life, Prices on imported goods, from electronics to groceries, are expected to fall as tariffs disappear. Online shoppers will benefit, with platforms like Shein and Temu able to offer lower prices again. For workers in industries reliant on imports, lower costs could secure jobs and boost competitiveness. Those in protected sectors like steel or furniture may face new challenges as foreign competition returns. Consumers will see more variety and better prices on store shelves. The ruling shifts the U.S. back toward an open, competitive market. Ultimately, it means more choices and potential savings for families. Experts agree, the Supreme Court's decision is a turning point for U.S. trade policy. Dr. Emily Chen notes it curbs executive overreach and reasserts Congress's role in major economic decisions. The ruling could shift America away from unilateral tariffs toward multilateral trade agreements. It opens the door for renewed engagement with the World Trade Organization and global partners. International leaders see the U.S. market reopening, incentivizing new and restored trade relationships. The decision removes a major source of global trade friction, stabilizing the system. The U.S. can now play a more constructive role in shaping global commerce. This legal precedent will influence presidents and policymakers for years to come. The world is watching as America redefines its place in the global economy. Trump's tariffs forced countries to forge new trade alliances, permanently altering global commerce. The EU finalized deals with Mercosur, Mexico, and Indonesia, while Asia and the Middle East struck their own agreements. The world learned to trade without relying on the US as the central player. Now, with US barriers gone, countries have more options, resuming trade with America while maintaining new partnerships. This could create a more resilient, multipolar trading system. For the U.S., the challenge is to compete in a world that has moved on. American businesses must adapt to new realities at home and abroad. The opportunity: re-engage globally from a position of openness and renewed credibility. The ruling doesn't turn back the clock, it opens a door to a changed world. The next chapter of global trade will be written by all. The Supreme Court's decision to overturn Trump-era tariffs is a watershed moment. It restores Congress's role in trade, ends a period of economic unilateralism, and promises relief for consumers. Businesses face both new opportunities and challenges as global competition returns. Politically, the ruling has reignited debate over America's trade future. The world is more diverse and interconnected than before, with new alliances and possibilities. The U.S. now has a chance to re-engage through negotiation, not barriers. The future of trade will be shaped by public debate and democratic process. A new era of global commerce is beginning, and its story is just unfolding.